Hello and welcome back to World of Tanks. I'm Klaus, and today we will be reviewing not only my favorite tank of the whole war, but also in World of Tanks and War Thunder. So, without further ado, let's get started. So as you can see in the video right now, the tank we will be reviewing is the Jagdpanther. Now, I'm going to be giving a little bit of background information on how the Panther came into production and design, a little bit of the history of competition for design as well, but also about the actual Jagdpanther itself and how it came to be the Jagdpanther from the Panther. So, a little reminder, I know you'll hear me say Panther or Jagdpanther, or in future videos, Tiger, but that's how you pronounce it in German. So, anyway, now you may be wondering also later on, when I give facts about the Panther, you may be saying, well, why don't you save that information for a review on the actual Panther tank, the German Tier 7 medium? Well, there's a problem with that, as you can see. I'm not very close to it. I wanted to do the Panther before doing the Jagdpanther because I was going to state the facts I'm going to give you here in a minute, and then come back and say later, well, so you know a little bit already about the Panther, so let's talk about how the Jagdpanther came to be. But obviously I can't do that because, well, let's just say this tank isn't. I mean, it's not a bad tank, but it's not all that great either, considering some of the things that it goes up against. Anyway, let's get back to the Jagdpanther. I'll also be switching between the two tanks because obviously this has a big part in how the Jagdpanther came to be. So let's begin. So after the creation of the Panzer IIIs and the Panzer IVs, the German military and even the high-ranking officials with Hitler had noticed that after invading Russia, that the Panzer III and IVs were becoming outclassed by the more mobile, more armored, and just the great decent gun of the T-34. So there needed to be something done about it. There needed to be built a new tank to counter the Russian T-34. And in April of 1942, there were two companies who were competing to submit designs that would ultimately become the Panther, and that project is known as the VK3002M. Or, I'm sorry, not M, but VK3002. M is because that's obviously the final design, but we'll get on how that came to be in a second. So there are two companies that were competing to submit designs. That was Daimler-Benz and Maschinenfabrik Augsburg Nuremberg AG, also known as MAN. And obviously, as you may know, or some of you may know already, that the MAN ultimately won, but I said again, get back to that in a second. So there's a bit of somewhat unknown history about the early development stages of the VK3002. And a lot of people may not know about Daimler-Benz's submissions and also MAN's submissions, and that ultimately the Panther can look very different from what we know today, but obviously, in my personal opinion, it's a better design and look one. So Daimler-Benz at first made a prototype. It was VK3002DB. DB is obviously meaning Daimler-Benz, but the difference is it had a diesel engine, the tank is driven by a rear drive sprocket and front mounted turret, kind of like you see here with the Tiger P. It would, I'm not saying it looked like this, but the turret would be on the front. And also, the hull of the Daimler-Benz prototype or design, it had a hull very similar to the T-34. So practically what they did was took a captured T-34 from the Eastern Front and they just pretty much copied the whole. Now, I personally don't like the Russian tanks. Yes, they were built in great numbers, and ultimately that was the deciding factor, and they're cheap, reliable, but I personally don't like really all the look of them. There are very few Russian tanks that I like the look of. One of them being, what we see here, is the IS, or in real life this would be the IS-2, or Joseph Stalin 2, whatever, JS2, whatever, where you're from, they call it. But it all means the same thing. Anyway, we'll discuss things, other different tanks like the IS-2, Tiger 1, etc., etc., later on down the road. So that was pretty much Daimler-Benz's model of the VK3002. The difference now you'll hear about why MAN's Panther, or I'm sorry, I keep saying Panther, VK3002 was different. MAN had a typical turret design, had a center-mounted turret, kind of like this, instead of it being fully mounted in the front. It had a petrol engine as opposed to DB's diesel. Now, diesel, I personally think, it is much better in tanks, but obviously Germany couldn't get diesel during the Second World War. It was pretty much only available to mainly Russia and some American vehicles, but mainly Russia. It's kind of ironic because Rudolf Diesel, who is German, invented the diesel engine, so you think maybe the Germans would have diesel. No. Who knows? Another final difference between the MAN Panther, VK3002 to the DB VK3002 is it had a front-mounted drive sprocket and transmission. At first, DB's design was recommended to Hitler by Albert Speer and the former Reich Minister Fritz Todt due to initial advantages over the original submission of the MAN Panther, or again VK3002. But upon when it came to submitting the final design for final review and choosing by a council specifically and personally appointed to by Hitler, it was won by MAN because well, first let me get to how the special commission appointed by Hitler was appointed by Hitler in May of 1942, and that's when they chose the MAN design, and it looks exactly or pretty much like this, as what you see here. And it looks pretty much exactly like a Panther Ausführung A, or Panther Aufs A, and that's pretty much exactly what they did. They took this tank and pretty much the first model, which was the A, they pretty much just made it this, So that's why they look a lot alike. Obviously the gun barrel is the muzzle brake, looks a bit different, but oh well, that's doesn't really matter about that. After his special commission had chose the MAN design, they then in turn submitted that to Hitler, and Hitler just overnight, within a night, he approved the design. There was a few main reasons why they chose MAN's final design over Daimler-Benz. One of the reasons was the turret made by MAN used a turret made by Rheinmetall. That's a pretty, heard of name. You should know, what that is. If not, I'll discuss stuff like that in a later video when I do a review on the tank like the Rheinmetall Bosig Waffenträger. So, the turret used by MAN, was made by Rheinmetall. It was already an existing turret, and it didn't need no further design and production, and therefore wasted money and resources to make. DB, on the other hand, would need a whole new design, and again, for the turret, and also engine, but again, because the engine the turret was weird, and added a considerable amount of weight, and they had to replace the engine. And then again, in turn, cost more money and resources to be spent. And that is pretty much how the VK3002 became known as VK3002M. Also, if anyone knows a historical fact that I may have gotten wrong, please feel free to comment below, and I will add annotations in the future to correct myself. Who knows, maybe viewing this video, I may catch something that I got wrong, and I will do so. I'm not going to say I'm the most perfect person in the world, and I'm all-knowing, and my facts are 100% correct, but that's pretty much near impossible because no one is perfect. Anyway, so pretty much after the MAN design was chosen, the Panther went into design from when it was chosen, and then it started to go into production into 1943, and then if I'm not mistaken, the Panther came out onto the field for the first time in Operation Citadel, or Operation Citadel. Let me check on that real quick. I'm pretty sure. Oh, it doesn't say, but I'm pretty sure it came out then. But after creating the Panther, the German military wanted, well, let's take the typical German assault gun or tank destroyer concept. You take a chassis of an already existing tank, you get rid of the turret, put a fixed casement or box on the top, put a much bigger, more powerful gun. Obviously that happened with tanks like the Stug 3 and other tanks like the Ferdinand here. It came off the Tiger Porsche chassis, and again they removed the turret, put casement, and added a much bigger 88 because the Tiger P had the short 88, not in World of Tanks, but historically it had the short 88. But yeah, so then that's pretty much how it came to be. They wanted a gun that could take out tanks like the IS-1, IS-2 even, but that's later in the war, but pretty much be able to take out the Allies' most updated tanks at every point and stage in the war. Interesting fact about the Jagdpanther is that, like most special or unique German vehicles during World War II, is only small amounts were made. Exactly, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but 415 were made. So that makes this a really rare German tank, or tank destroyer, or sword gun. Yeah, I mean, but getting back to the Panther, to me personally, I preferred also the Tiger 1. Not the Tiger 2. I don't really like the Tiger 2. I don't know. I'm just not really a Tiger 2 guy. I mean, I like heavy tanks such as the Tiger 1 and Tiger Porsche, but other than that, I'm really not a heavy tank guy. I'm more about the tank destroyers. So, yeah. In World of Tanks, going back to my original thought, I think, and others also think, that the Panther is the best tank of World War II, arguably, or one of the best. It not only had greater sloping at distances, it had tremendous sloping. I mean, look at the slope. I mean, that also goes for the VK3002M. It pretty much is the same kind of sloping you'll find on the Panther. I mean, look at that. I mean, you get something to shoot at a, I'm not saying, well, 122 millimeter at a decent enough range, can go straight through that and, well, wreck everything inside. But at a great enough distance, or a smaller gun than the 122, found on a lot of Russian tanks, will bounce off or not cause a lot of damage. But pretty much the Panther came to be, and the sloping on the front came from, again, from the T-34. The Germans, it was a revolutionary concept in tank creation for Germany, because while a lot of their tanks were kind of, boxy, or they just believed in armor sickness in a lot of tanks. But this Panther, or Jagdpanther, was a revolutionary concept, because not only did it take in the fact of maneuverability and a decent gun, it took into effect of sloped armoring, and that obviously made it good. You make here, you can see the welding. You make that thick enough, and also the sloping at a great enough angle, like you see here, it's going to bounce a lot of shots coming in. Now, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, I mean, it's just a good tank. No, yeah, I don't remember what I was going to say. The Panther, another reason I prefer the Panther and Jagdpanther over the Tiger 1 is the Tiger 1, the short 88. It was a bigger shell, obviously. So whenever it exploded, high explosive or armor piercing composite rigid shells, the fragmentation would be much greater, or not from APCR, but AP and HE, the fragmentation would be much greater, but it didn't have a higher velocity. You see, 75 hit a BK-42 L70 had not only a higher velocity, but had more penetration. Whereas that goes without saying, because the higher velocity, the more penetration you have. This was due to the fact that the Panther had the 75, for that matter, was a longer gun than the shorter 88, and that's what made the high velocity. And another thing, like I said earlier, is the mobility and the armor. Now, the downfall of the Panther was, like many German engineered tanks of the time, the lesser produced ones, was the fact that you had to run at a reduced speed to avoid having to brake the engine or the transmission. The gears on this thing, it was so under-geared, the little teeth, they were so small and thin that running at a high enough speed, they would snap. And, well, with the Panther, yeah, you don't want that to happen, especially in even a self-propelled gun like the Jagdpanther, because, well, you only have a certain amount of gun traverse to go either way. Another thing is to say, hold on 1 second, say something in the tracks, so one of the road wheels, it broke. Well, you have to, since it's not necessarily a bad thing. Look, hindsight would tell you so, but not always. But a major downfall was the overlaying road wheels. They were overlaying, so if something broke, you had, say, maybe this one broke. To be able to get to it, you have to, it's kind of like a domino effect. You have to take off more than you want. You would have to take off this one, etc., etc. It's a whole mess. And not only another thing is, when you turn your tanks this way or this way, mud would get up in here, and it would, say there's mud behind the road wheels in between, and say the crew for the night or during the winter on the eastern front or even the western front, dirt or mud in there would freeze, and, well, yeah, you can pretty much guess what was to come. It froze. You couldn't do anything. you were done. You couldn't move until you got the shit and the gunk out of there unfrozen or whatever. And then again, you have to take off all of the road wheels, and it's just a whole mess of trouble. Another thing is with the engine from watching a documentary a little while back on the Panther. The engine, you couldn't really work on the engine. If you wanted to work on the engine, you can only go in one way, and you would have to be upside down, and a whole mess of trouble. And let's just say the Panther was great, but besides the mechanical things, with the mechanical things are its downfall. I mean, that goes without saying with most German vehicles of the time, but that was the only downfall. The mechanical problems were just tremendous. They were, this thing had very bad mechanical problems. Such bad mechanical problems, it was rumored that tanks rolling off the train when it gets to the front, they would burst to flames or explode getting off the train. I mean, that's pretty bad. But that was early on only in the early Panther D model. By the Panther A and the Panther G, a lot of those problems were fixed, but they were always still there. I mean, you can't completely take away that chance, Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, you can't completely 100% take a chance out of there. It's always possibly there. Another thing, getting back to way earlier, when I said about the diesel and petrol engines, petrol is nice, it's cheaper, I don't know necessarily about fuel consumption. I mean, it could... me personally, when it comes to vehicles in real life, I like to prefer, say for example, you take a Volkswagen Passat or Jetta. I would prefer to have a TTI clean diesel, because those such small engines in the cars, diesel engines, they're pretty fuel efficient. I mean, what is it, like 30, 40 plus mpg, and that's near equivalent with a petrol engine. I mean, it's great, And the same thing goes with tanks, pretty much. But the downfall was the trade-off for the better fuel economy and not bursting into flames, because if you shoot a diesel tank, I mean, obviously there's a chance it's going to explode, but diesel doesn't ignite like petrol does, or for other countries, gasoline. But it costs more. That's pretty much the downfall. There's nothing you can really do about that. But yeah, I mean, other than that, this thing was great. I still find it to be the best tank of the war. I mean, it had, like I said, equivalent armor, if not better. Good immobility, except the reducing. I mean, even running at reduced speeds, I mean, it can go, if I'm not mistaken, like still 25 plus 30 plus kilometers an hour. I mean, that's very good. I mean, this thing could go even faster. I mean, it could go much higher, and that's a great thing about it all, But again, I don't want to repeat myself like in my first video, but again, this is the downfalls. But now going to World of Tanks standards, well, this thing is a beast. You take games with German vehicles of the time, and you take out the mechanical failures and other things. they're just damn fine, is what they are. One of the other things I like about German tanks, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, German tanks was the first tanks that you can turn one track one way and one track the other at the same exact time, and it won't necessarily snap or break. I mean, it's good German engineering. I'm not going to sit here and sound like a Verbu. And if you don't know what a Verbu is, look it up on Urban Dictionary, or I might even post it in the description. But I don't want to sound like a Verbu here, but I think that German engineering at this time was fantastic, and also paved the way for future innovations in science later in history. But I'm not going to say that it's all Germany, a big chunk, but there are things from the Allies, like the mass production and so on and so forth. So in World of Tanks, the thing has 850 hit points, which, I mean, for a tier 7 tank destroyer is not very bad. I mean, you look at its adversaries, like for example, let's take the T25-2, has 800 and what? Let's take in the turret. Added HP. Well, I know it does, but it's not telling me. But it adds, over 800 hit points. Let's look at the British. Oh, that's right. Oh no, they don't have turrets, but you can still. I mean, it has 1250, but that's a British tank destroyer. Those things, I don't know why, but they have more hit points than the other nations. Again, 840. Adding the turret will probably add maybe like to 860, 870, somewhere around there. Excuse me. But I mean, it's pretty on par with its adversaries. 820. Go to Russia. Where are we? 870, 830. You get the idea. So the weight load, I mean, it's great. If I'm not mistaken, you or me. See, here's the thing with me. I went up the newer German tank destroyer line before I went down the original line. So I went and got the Rheinmetall Borsig Waffenträger, or as I like to call it, the Wombat. I got that first, and when I came pretty much up through this whole line since I went up here, I had most of the guns unlocked. Like this Jagdpanther 4. Gets the, again, Pack 42 or KWK 42 L70. I hate when people say with two different guns, Pack 42, KWK 42 L70 75mm. It's the same damn gun. It's just different classifications for the between tank destroyer and regular tank guns. But I'm not going to. That's a whole other argument. But I'm not going to get into that right now. You take the Pack 42 L70 and you see it's on the Nashorn, which is on the other line, and that's what I like, and getting the Nashorn, you see the 88 centimeter or 88 millimeter 88 centimeter 8.8 centimeter Pack 43 L71. Now for those who know right away, you think, oh, that's the long 88, and we have the short 88 here. I unlocked it on the Nashorn. I went to the Nashorn first. It gets a long 88 on a tier 6. I mean, that's good. The camo rating is phenomenal out of this world, but I can't believe I sold it, but I had to make room for the Ferdinand, which I just recently got. I'll make a video on that down the road when I get it fully upgraded. But as you see, the Jagdpanther, it's on the Jagdpanther. So, the great thing is when you first unlock the Jagdpanther, if you went down got the Nashorn fully upgraded, you will have the 88mm, the long 88 unlocked right at first, right away. And that's phenomenal, because if you want to get to 105, you have the best gun, in my personal opinion, to get the to work towards the 105. But if I'm not mistaken, you have to have the tracks before you get on the 105. That goes without saying, but you get pretty much, in my personal opinion, the best gun unlocked right away. Now, the distinction between the two top guns. First, if you don't go down the Nashorn line, you are stuck with choice between 75 Pack 42 L70 and the short 88. Most people go for the short 88 because I don't understand the logic, but it's a topic for another video. But I don't understand the logic that people go for the higher damage. Me, I go for penetration, and if it's also there a plus, I would go for the rate of fire. That is me. That it's what I personally choose. But a lot of people, or most people, are different. They like to see the damage. Or well, you can't choose for people. You can't just wish for them to have it what you want. it's not how it works in real life, and quite frankly, you can't control them, etc. I'm rambling. Anyway, but distinction between, and you just have to go use either of those two first guns, and you have to go 16,500 research experience to get the long 88. And if that is your gun, I still recommend researching the 105. I've seen people skip over the 105 and go straight to the Ferdinand or the Jagdpanther 2. Let's think of it this way. The guns on the Jagdpanther 2 and Ferdinand are so I'm not going to say they're the worst in this game, but they're pretty bad. You see tier 9, tier 10s. It's a gun that either does 200 millimeters of penetration or 203, and you see tanks like the E100. Even if that thing is not angled, even with APCR, you might have a hard time penetrating. But yeah, that's a fact of life. But I've seen people skip over the 105 and go straight to the Ferdinand or Jagdpanther 2, and that is just a whole nother 16,000 experience to get before even the tracks the engine is 128. It's just a whole nightmare. So please, for your own safety and enjoyment, well, it's not safety, but maybe safety. Who knows, people out there? But for your enjoyment and not to get too mad, I would recommend getting the 105 unlocked on here first. Now, getting on the guns, since we're on the subject, the top two guns, you got the choice between the 88mm long, or the Pak 43 R71, or the short 105 Pak L52. Calibers are different, so the fire on the 88 is more than the 105, the penetration is more. And some people may think, well, it's only a 3 penetration difference, so why not just go for a little slower reload and more damage, and just a little bit less accuracy, but a better aiming time. Well, I always tell my friends that 3 penetration can be the difference between not penning something that you may seem to think is easy to pen, but it's really not, or not. It may be the difference between life and death. You will not know. So I always have it on just to be safe. Now, I also like the 88 because the dispersion at 100 meters, basically the accuracy is much better. I mean, obviously with the recent patch in 9.6, that's 2 patches now ago, but one patch ago since 9.7, not 9.8 yet, but I'm rambling. The shots are going to be less inaccurate. That's one thing I don't like about World of Tanks compared to War Thunder. You could be on flat ground like this, fully aimed, and the shot, you fire and it curves. That's not really how trajectory works. Not maybe unless there's some kind of miscalibration with the gun. Maybe that's why they put in the bad accuracy too. Since it's more arcadey, they try to, make it more realistic in that sense by making that accuracy to try to compensate for miscalibration of the gun or gunner error or whatever. But in War Thunder you have modules to research to fix that kind of thing, and you don't really miss, and that's what I like about War Thunder better. But World of Tanks is still a fun game. The arcadey, it makes it really fun to play. When you want a break from the realism and the sometimes stress that comes with those kind of games, you have a arcadey type game to fall back. Now, the aiming time, I don't know why this is, but the 105, a bigger, shorter, stubbier caliber gun, has a less of an aiming time. I don't understand why. Again, if someone could possibly explain that to me, please post below and I will look at it and comment. But yeah, I mean, doesn't make sense. But I think the 88 is better. I would take the 3 penetration more, since 3 less penetration going the other way. The faster reload and better accuracy. Now in excuse me. Now in a city street type aspect, the 105 might be better because with the aiming time and the damage, you want the oomph, you want the punch, and in a close quarters scenario you don't need to worry about aiming. But if you have multiple people around the corner and they're trying to rush you, the faster reload again might be in your best interest. But it's all down to personal playstyle. Now the top speed, 55 kilometers per hour. Now in real life, the Panther had the capability of going even faster. At least I'm sure. But obviously the undergearing, like I said earlier, that makes it go even less. The reason why the Panther had so much great maneuverability and speed is because originally, if I'm not mistaken, the Panther had the original weight was like 30 tons, and that was pretty lightweight. And if I'm not mistaken, the historical Jagdpanther or Panther used the engine from the Tiger 1. So yeah, 210. So this would probably be the historical engine. I don't know, 210. Anyway, rambling. So at least that's what I heard, but had this near same engine, and that 30 tons with the Tiger 1 is so heavy, even some powerful engine had problems. You could not go full, you couldn't go full, speed without things breaking, but, that powerful engine powering the Panther, well, or near powerful engine powering the Panther, well, that made the speed very high, but, Hitler wanted more armor on the Panther. I mean, it wasn't, even the Jagdpanther, but it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, look at the reputation this thing got with the new armor. So it made it heavier, and it made it go down to the original weight of the Tiger 1, which the original Tiger 1 weight, again, correct me if I'm wrong, was supposed to be 45 tons. Yeah, exactly what we see here. But Hitler, again, wanted more armor, and that armor on the front, it increased the weight. So the final Panther and Jagdpanther, or near final weight, was that to the original weight of the Tiger 1. The traverse speed is phenomenal. 32 degrees per second. I mean, that's pretty decent. That's pretty good. I mean, you take something like a Scout. Look, 40 degrees per second. That's not pretty bad. 40 degrees. It's not very bad at all. The whole armor, you may think, well, 80 millimeters frontal armor, that's not much for things that can penetrate, has high penetration. Well, guess what? Sloped. It works wonders, obviously. So, that is increased effective thickness, so it really goes up. 50 on the side and 40 on the rear, where you're not really going to be bouncing. I mean, it's possible, I've done it, but it's not very likely. This thing has bounced shots from tier 9s, tier 8s, and other tier 7s. I mean, the sloping of the Panther and Jagdpanther are phenomenal. So the Panther, I think, in this game, I've played it on a friend's account and on the test server. I think it's under-tiered. I'm not under-tiered. It's underrated. It's not really what it should be. Excuse me one moment. The Panther in real life, it had a near scary reputation of a Tiger 1. A Tiger 1 shot. I mean, it could be a Stug 3 or even a Panzer 4 or whatever could shoot an allied tank and destroy it, and people within the group or column or squad or whatever, it was they automatically assumed it was a Tiger 1. I mean, and that also leads to another video later down the road. The Tiger 1 threat was overblown, and the same pretty much goes for the Panther as on Jagdpanther as well, but when they actually did fight and hit, they hit hard, and not only were they feared by the enemies, but also very respected along with the crews. Excuse me. Again, the damage and penetrations are up to the gun you choose. Same thing with the rate of fire, the reload. The gun traverse is very decent. You can press X or whatever the lock hold button you have selected, and you can the gun traverse. I mean, it's not the greatest, but it can go a decent amount either way. It's very good. The view range, well, I mean, that's compared to its adversaries. So let's take the view range here, 350, and let's take it for, say, compared to an SU-152. 630, 350. Historically, German optics were better than Allied optics, so not only this gun, but, you know, as you can see here, the little telescope to view, that was practically what they used to. Actually, that would be the gun sight for the gunner, but what I'm saying is, what I'm saying is that German optics were superior, so the view range should be higher than a lot of tanks here. Now, obviously, if you're going against a paper tank, maybe that may not be the case. The signal range, you get a Fug 12. That's probably the most common engine on German tanks is the Fug 12 engine. I mean, engine. Wow, listen to me, the radio. That's pretty much the most common radio on all the German tanks. And it's a good radio, you know. It weighs pretty, less, but, a radio weight is not going to necessarily make or break a tank. But the signal range is phenomenal. Now, a case, again, I'm going to do another video on this tank as well later on. A case for the radio size and weight made or breaks a tank goes for the Firefly, They had to put a box in the turret and kind of create a more different turret to be able to fit the 17-pounder. Anyway, so yeah, this is the Jagdpanther and World of Tanks. Now, at appropriate module, or not modules, what's these called, consumables, or whatever, equipment, yes, equipment. So I feel so stupid, but as the equipment, it's obviously the first things first. No matter what gun you choose, I recommend getting the medium caliber tank gun rammer. That should be something on most tanks, if not all. Since it's a tank destroyer, not necessarily a brawling tank, unless you are, say, for example, in a matchmaking where you are the only tier 7 or top 2 tier 7s in the game, and the rest are tier 6, 5s, and a couple 4 scouts, you don't necessarily need to be, a sniper, but, and often a lot of cases, even in tier 7 games and higher, you're going to find the camo ratings. This thing's camo is phenomenal. Not only with the camo net, but camo paint on the tank. Now, also binocular telescope. Now, another argument for another late date and time is the discussion between the coated optics and binocular telescopes. So, the binocular telescope, they both increase the view range to 500 or up to 500 meters. How do I want to say? So, but the difference is one gets 10% up to 500, and the other gets 20% up to 500. Now, the one that gets 20%, it has to sacrifice something to balance it out, and when you move it, obviously it deactivates. But it's coated optics, for having a lower percent, it gets compensated with always being on. Of course, you could change it up to whatever you want, enhanced gun laying drive, but with 1.7 second aiming time, and even with 2.3, you don't need it. So the thing aims in really fast, and I'm kind of surprised why this thing it has such a quick aim and time now. Some people may not think 2.3 seconds is fast, but compared to a Russian gun or sometimes an American gun, it is not always the greatest. But you know, whatever. So that's pretty much it. So now let's get to a game, shall we? I will see you in a second. Hello, and we are back. So here is the game. I just went into this battle, and this is a tier top 7. Excuse me, tier 7 top match here on the new Normandy Overlord map. So let's get started. So really what I'm going to do is probably, well, first I'm going to go to where I originally wanted to go. I normally like to go over here in my Jagdpanther, so, but if no one goes on the way as the beach, I might turn around. So, alright, decent amount going kind of that way. I'll probably just stick over here. No harm can be done. So, alright. Now, so when you play the Jagdpanther, it's excuse me, it's of utmost importance to find a spot where you can camouflage your tank very well, and well, sometimes it's always the best spot. Like here, this would have been a great spot. You see Rudy, which is a tier 6 T-3485, named after the popular Polish TV show. It would have been a great spot if they would have come up. Now, I'm not going to be like other YouTubers and try to get the most best replay out there. You know, try to, oops, sorry, choose the best video and clip to show. I want to show the ultimate real experience. What I could have done was taken my backing video for my channel introduction video, it's a 4000 damage game, and use that to commentate, but that would be lazy, wouldn't it? So I'm not going to do that. But as you can see here, a lot of the enemy team went over here, and yeah, it's kind of a cluster right now. Yeah, it's T-29 both sides here. Oh, the artillery got him. As you see, a KVC is looking here. We are probably going to take a hit. I couldn't get to fight a good shot. Oh, no. See, sometimes that is where the accuracy of the Jagdpanther can screw you. I mean, it has very great accuracy, but not all the time will it work. And now, while we wait for his long reload, we are unload. Oh, scheiße. Oh, scheiße. Oh. See, right there is where the angling of the Jagdpanther can come into effect. You see, I was angled not severely, but for a good decent bit, and I bounced the shot. Yeah, sure, yes, 175 millimeters of penetration, but for, you know, effective thickness and angling of the armor, I don't know if it will total to 175. So it's always a rewarding kind of thing. So our team has pretty much taken this flank. Here we are going to unload on the Su-152. Could have waited to aim in, but no, not enough artillery looking at me. So, the leopard is waiting to take a shot at the S-51. So, oh well. Alright, so there is only one tank on the map left, and he went down the beach. As you see, this is a pretty good, decent game here. on 1,433 damage. Fairly good, especially since my average damage in this thing per battle is like 1,300. It's just a very good overall tank destroyer. So yeah, and he will not come out of this alive. I mean, there's no way he can face all of us rushing down to get him. So now as you can see the top speed of the Panther here. It's working. Don't want to kill him. Oh no! Oh, I did the artillery shell. Oh, I kind of feel bad for him. Oh well, you know, there wasn't his name on it at all, so yeah. So as you can see, it's a decent game. It's what one of the things you can expect in the Jagdpanther. 1600 experience doubled. Without, I would have done 1626. So, oh, I'm sorry, that's without premium. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't even have premium. Oh, I thought I did. My mind is somewhere else. Now, ignore the mastery badge second class, because if you go under my service record, I already have a ace tanker badge on this thing, so that's quite alright. Again, 1573 damage, 2 kills. Oh, base experience, here we go. So, not bad. Detailed report. You know, nothing unusual or out of the ordinary. So yeah. That's pretty much it. I would want to do another battle in this to show you an even greater replay, but as you can see, the time in the video has gotten pretty long as it is, and I don't want to make it too long, not only to not bore you, but also for uploading purposes. I don't want to be sitting here for however long it takes to upload the video, not to mention the time it will take to edit and all of that. So that was me and my review on the Jagdpanther, and a little bit of background history on the Panther. So I hope you enjoyed. Stick around, and another video will be out soon. Auf Wiedersehen, and have fun on the battlefield.